let's actually start then. Hi, Malene.
Hi, Robert.
You can't see me, but I'm here. Malene is actually from Denmark, and she's an Agile coach for the last 5 years or so in South Africa. And Malene quite proudly writes in her biography that she's never done a waterfall project. Now, obviously, I think she's missing out on life. And I have recommended that maybe she'd like to try out a waterfall project, but she didn't take me up on that offer yet. So Malene has a lovely interactive stuff for you coming up here. So you should be seeing this, if you guys could get on this AHA slides, so you can ask questions there and stuff from Malene. She's going to talk about my Scrum is better than your Scrum. And thank you again, Malene. Malene jumped in the last moment, folks, because I felt we needed a bit more, about your Scrum, about the teamwork and stuff like that. And Malene got recommended to me. As soon as we started talking, it was like, oh yes, this is what I've been looking for. So thank you, Malene. And I'll drop back in again and just to wrap it up. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Robert. So yeah, welcome everyone. And this is so weird, hey, because I just see a big QR code. I can't see any people, so now it feels like I speak to myself, but welcome. As Robert said, thank you for the great introduction, Robert. We're going to use I am going to use AHA slides at today's talks, so that means they're interactive slides, so you can participate, so it doesn't just become me talking to my screen, but we actually feel like we do a little bit of communication. So please use your phone and scan the QR code or type in the URL that will send you to the slides where you can participate. I can see we're getting people in here. So I can actually also, for my version, I can actually see, I can actually see the numbers coming in. And we can already see you can be interactive, you can give hearts, you can give thumbs up, and you can actually also ask questions. So I know in Hubin there is a chat and those things, but while I speak, I actually cannot see the chat and I can't see you. So if you want to ask me about something, you're more than welcome. You can use the AHA slides, simply ask a question on your phone and it will pop up to me. I will just share the QR code one more time so you can join if you didn't have, and if you just joined the session. So as Robert said, today we're going to talk about my Scrum is better than your Scrum. You have to find a kinky title, hey? It's always what draws the attention. What we're actually talking about is anti-pattern in Scrum and how we're actually dealing with them. So this talk came up so I do a lot of coaching of Scrum Masters. And I think in the Agile community, we often talk about the anti-pattern of a Scrum Master and those things. But I like to say, we're a whole team driving this. And who actually look at the anti-patterns in your Scrum? It's not just the Scrum Master. So that's why I created this talk, and we'll start to explore. First slide is from you. I want to see who is there, who is out on the other side. What country are you from? So you will be able to see on your phone now, we'll swap over to a question that you can fill in. And if you start filling it, you can see it pops up here. We have a lot from Austria, Hungary, Austria. What else? Vienna, Italy, welcome. I was actually so lucky to attend the global gathering in Vienna last year. So I were a trip to Vienna and see the beautiful city. It's stunning, hey? Europe. That's very, very large. Thanks for participating. So a little bit, that was about me. So Robert did mention a little bit, I'm originally Danish, moved to South Africa, specific Cape Town for 5 years ago now. And I'm working as an Agile coach and trainer. And Robert mentioned I've never done a waterfall project. So I'm actually an educated developer, engineer. And I was so lucky from the start of the education. They were very much forward looking and saying, you need to learn what is new tomorrow because IT develops so fast. So I was actually I think it's 17 different Agile frameworks when I was at the university. So when I came out, that just became, that's how we do it. And then I came out to the real world and no, that's not just how people do it. And that's where I took a journey, and I also proudly say I've fulfilled all roles in a Scrum team. and I learned a lot on my journey. And my big passion to the day-to-day is actually like Agile and Scrum is something we like the mindset and something we do. But for me, it's all about the passion to get teams to experience true Scrum and Agile mindset and develop that. And in that create the motivation and joy. So that's my passion, to get team to feel that passion in their work. The picture here is actually me abseiling from Table Mountain. That is very high. And yeah, I love to be a bit of a daredevil. And it's actually challenging for myself. I don't enjoy it. I always bloody scared before I start, but I always feel it changes me as a person when I do things I'm scared of. It moves me in a better direction. So I love to do things. I normally say every year I need to do something I'm scared of. So for a couple of years ago, that was abseiling from Table Mountain. Let's get into the more important things. Again, if you're on your slides, if you haven't gone there yet, you can see up here in the top, I will just click so you can get the QR code again, quickly scan it. On the first slide, there's a questions. I want to bring you into the session. I want you to think about what anti-pattern would you say your Scrum team is doing at the moment? And if you're not part of a team, it can also be what you see, what you've heard of, what you experience. Plan over people. I very much agree on that one. All of them. And I'm curious to see if I can show you something different today. The thing is, maybe some of you will sit with a feeling today saying there wasn't much new in it. And that's also okay, because sometimes it's good to be reminded of things, because we tend to go into our old pattern, right, and stay there and not change. And then, like, we want to start reminding people so they can move forward. There's some good stuff here. I just want to show the QR code again, in case we're missing some people. So what anti-pattern have you heard of? There's a lot out there, hey? There's a lot. I can see they're coming in now. The thing is, there is a lot, and we can't cover them all today. I've taken the major things I've seen, and they keep coming in here. It's great to see. Oh yeah, this one, hey, daily meeting used as a report meeting. There's some good ones. I want to move on. We only have a limited time. I think we could talk the whole day about these topics. Hey, there's so much. This picture should not be new for any of you. That's the Scrum framework, just drawn up by me. This is just to show you that today I'm touching on some of the big events. I'm not touching on everything, but this was just to bring our head into what is it about today. It is the Scrum framework. It's not the people specific, like one Scrum Master. What are they doing wrong? It's like, what is the anti-pattern in the framework? And once again, I want you to be active. So just to check, what are the 5 events in Scrum? Does anybody actually know? I think that's the first anti-pattern we see. Does people actually know the 5 events in Scrum? So if you are on your phone, you can see them here. If you haven't checked into the slides, scan the QR code and it will send you into the slide. It is easiest if you do it on your phone. So you can use like your phone as a remote and then see the results up here. What is actually the 5 event of Scrum? I saw my answer was actually out there before I showed the slide. So somebody probably cheated. Else I hope you're good at answering this. I should actually have asked to the start, hey, what people we have in the room. Is it Scrum Master? Is it the team? Because I see when I ask this question, it's very different compared to what people work. Let's see. This is such a good example of what I anticipated. Luckily, there's most that know the right answer. So for those of you that doesn't know, the 5 big event in Scrum is actually the sprint planning, daily Scrum, review, and retrospective. It's not grooming, also called refinement. There's a lot of things there. Even there, hey, we get the session wrong. What are we actually doing? It's interesting to me how such a simple thing suddenly become, and people say it doesn't matter. But the thing I see often is, well, if we don't even have the same language in a team, how can we then understand each other? And then again, people will say, yeah, but it doesn't matter. It does matter. So today I will touch on these 5 events. What is the, I can see there's a question. Let me just quickly check. No, artifacts is something different from events. I won't come in on that right now because that will take it won't take a long time, but I know we shorten time to get through it, everything. It is something different. You should Google it. Let's move to the next one. That was just to remind you again. So the 5 big events is the sprint planning, it's the sprint, it's the daily scrum up here, and then it's the review and retrospective. So those are the events we will touch on today. Back to you. Now I want to bring your brain into the sprint planning. We want to start focusing on that one because as we saw in the picture, that's the first session we come into. What anti-pattern have you seen happening in the sprint planning event? Think about how you do it with your teams. Yeah, far too big stories, grooming, do refinement. It is a struggle for people here to change grooming into refinement, the wording again. Story points equal days. That's actually also a good one, hey. How people actually estimate. Overcommitment, estimation. Estimation, a whole topic on its own, hey. I always love to do these talks because there's so many topics out there to speak about. And it's like, often like I find myself, I have a huge passion for the topics, right? So it can often grow big because when you put passion into a topic, it does become, you want to deep into it. Thanks for your comments. I do agree with a lot of them. Something I see over and over again, and I didn't see it actually mentioned, is people still doing the SP1 and SP2. So if anybody is here that hasn't heard about that before, I think it was in 2013, before the Scrum Guide actually explained that you should run the sprint planning in SP2 and SP1, and SP2. In a way, SP1 was more like work with the product owner, and then SP2 is the team then talked about it. I still see team do this, and maybe they don't even call them, but it's just like it creates an anti-pattern of this saying we only have the product owner there for a short time, and we talk, and it actually creates anti-patterns. Also, I saw a lot of comments saying that we overcommit and we do things like that. Some of what I see is if you do the SP1 and SP2 still, it's a matter of you have all the conversation, and then first in SP2 you then talk about what we should be doing. It should be much more like we work together on figuring out what we can forecast we can do, right? We are a team that works together. It's not just a matter of, oh, we have the product owner for half an hour and then they have to leave again. It's kind of that thing, right? It's also an anti-pattern. The more we speak, the more anti-pattern we see. That the product owner comes in and say, I only have half an hour for you, and then I go out. There's a misunderstanding there, hey. The product owner needs to be with the team and work with them. So no, we do not do SP1 and SP2 anymore. We need to combine it, and we need to work together to be on the same page. We can't just let another thing is often like you even maybe don't have a product owner there and you have a BA that half of the time says, I don't know, I will have to go ask. And then one of the other anti-pattern we saw was, right, that it becomes a grooming session, a refinement session where they start talking about what is it actually we should do. Then you start all from scratch. You're actually not even ready for the sprint planning. I saw this one actually on the input you gave, lack of a sprint goal. Way too often we see teams focusing on, yes, we can do this story. Yes, we can do this story. We will do this, and then you will do that. And if it's actually really bad, they even say, you do that, you do that, you do that. And they nearly create like an individual sprint backlog for each person. And then that's it. And they will say, but why do we need a sprint goal? Well, it's a good thing. If you team asks that, why do we need a sprint goal? We can't come up with a sprint goal. It often shows that they don't work together as a team. One of the things you can see is if the sprint goal doesn't become important, the pattern can often be like, they could be like they work individually. And you actually see, if you have 5 developers, you have 5 sprint backlog because it's nearly even been assigned to each individual. No, then it's very difficult to make one sprint goal because they do not work together. Why I also bring this is because a lack of sprint goal actually create a lot of different anti-pattern that you will see coming along in this talk. We need to focus on this. What do we want to achieve together? What is the overall outcome of it? Let's move. I don't want to do more into this one because we are actually coming back. I want to mention it because now we're actually taking the sprint goal and see how that creates anti-pattern through the whole framework if you don't have it. Let's move to the sprint. So over to you, back to your phone. This is so wrong. Hey, normally when you speak, you say, "I'll put your phones away," but now we're remote. We have to think differently. So how do I get you interactive? Jump to your phone, and again, if you don't have the link anymore, here's the QR code, and it will send you directly in so you can answer. What anti-pattern have you seen in the sprint planning? While you're putting that up, I just want to check some questions. Yes, you can only answer. I actually like this one. While you guys are busy, I want to come into one of the questions. There's a need for collective technical planning on my team. Why not do that in SP2? Where to do it instead? So this is a very broad question, but the technical planning, it always depends, eh? But I want to say something that we often forget is, as you saw, refinement is not a session in the Scrum framework. But often what team does is they put it in as an event or a meeting every second week for 2 hours, and then they go in, and then, now I'm being very stereotypical, sorry, but what we've seen is you either have a PO or a BA standing there and explaining what the team should do. That's not the idea with refinement. So if we go back and think about the Scrum Guide, what do they say about refinement? It's basically 10% of the team's capacity in a sprint needs to be used for prepare for the next coming sprint. So I often actually use team and saying, shouldn't they actually do some technical, maybe not planning, but understanding before they even go in to the planning session? Because if they have heavy technical things that needs to be understood, how can they then even know them before they talk about them? So if you do something like a pre-refinement with the technical aspect of it, they could be even more sure of what they need to do when they go into a sprint planning, and you shorten your sprint planning. So it's a matter of thinking what is actually needed beforehand, and not just see it as a refinement session that's like, we need to get requirements for the BA or PO. No, you need to prepare to be ready for a sprint planning. If your sprint planning takes too long, it is often because you don't do enough refinement. And that's where we saw anti-pattern about sprint planning turns into a refinement. Sprint planning shouldn't take long. It's a bit more to actually say, are we on the same page and what are we actually looking for? Where it becomes refinement, then we forget the bigger picture. I hope that gave some input to the technical part of it. Get your team to do some pre-work before sprint planning so they're ready. There's a lot of input here. What anti-pattern have you seen happening in the sprint? Sprint not protected. Lack of communicating the scope of stories. That's interesting. Lack of planning. Team taking on sprint addition. Pushing. There's so much awesome stuff here. Thanks for your feedback. So one of the big thing I see is this one. You can't change the sprint backlog in a sprint. You actually can. We often see this, the developer comes in and the PO or somebody comes and say, no, we have to change this. And the developer is like, no, you can't do that. We committed to this. The thing is, they actually don't commit. That's actually also an anti-pattern. They forecast what they can do. And you should actually look at it. And now we come back to the sprint goal, because if you have a sprint goal set for the sprint, it becomes you shouldn't change the sprint goal, but you can change what we need to get there. Because the more we dig into something, the more we know about it, the more we understand, the more it actually can change. So we should have that open mind. And I like to say to teams, you should look at your sprint backlog as a to-do list to achieve the sprint goal. We know the to-do list can change, because often you do the first one, realize, no, the second one we shouldn't do, we could do this instead. I like to give the example as if you had to create a login page, and we go all natural and say you need a username and a password. Okay, that's our goal, is to create this in the sprint. Now on day 3, Michael is coming into the team and he says, oh, yesterday I saw this new cool thing where you could just look with your one eye and it logged you in. And you say, wow, that was amazing. Shouldn't we do that instead? Now you will think it's a complete change, but because our sprint goal is to make like security to log into somewhere, we don't change the sprint goal. It could be the same, but now we start a conversation in the team saying, okay, if we did this instead, how long would it take? Can we still do it in this sprint or not? And it's actually a collaborative at the team to say yes or no, and what do we do? It's not just a matter of saying, no, we can't. Because the thing about the Agile is we want to be in front. We don't want to waste our time on building something old. So we need that flexibility. Something else also on the sprint backlog is, if you're a Scrum Master, you need to start training your team in having an open mind. Often what happens with the way the brain works, if you sit in the sprint planning and they even say the wording, again, we're back to the words, they're so important. If you say, we commit to this, commit is like, it's closed, we have to do it, it's signed, this is what we need to do. Think about your working. If you're instead saying, this is what we forecast, then you'll have an open mind to it and saying, okay, it actually can change. The same when the developer or testers, like the whole team work in a sprint, get them to start having an open mind. I like with the developer saying, if they, for example, have to hand over to a tester, this is what I have done so far. Now, again, it's the wording about they're more open to say, okay, if the tester actually come back with something, I'm not done yet, compared to when they hand over and saying, I'm done. Then psychologically in the brain, they're already done. And if somebody comes back and says, it's not okay, they feel attacked because their brain has said they are done. So again, it's the communication between people. How can we create a more open and ready for change environment? So remember this, again, you need the sprint goal, that shouldn't change, but the backlog can. If your sprint goal changes, that is where you have to talk about, we need to cancel our sprint and then see if we need to create a new sprint with a new goal. Daily Scrum. Ooh, this is a funny one, hey? Stand up, what else do we call them? Back to you. What anti-pattern have you seen happening in the Daily Scrum event? And I want to look at the questions while we do that. I like this one. Can you not waste a lot of time negotiating the backlog during a sprint? It shouldn't be, because again, we're back to the sprint goal. If you have a good enough sprint goal, the sprint goal should be the one determine what is your goal. And your backlog is basically just the steps you need to achieve your goal. So it shouldn't be, it should actually just be drastically if something changed and if the goal changed. Else it shouldn't be. I actually also want to come back, and now it seems like I jumped way back, but I just want to make while you give me feedback on that one, I just want to make a quick comment on SP2 is task planning for us. The thing is, when the team do task planning, that's where they actually really understand the work. So if they already have, often with anti-pattern saying committed to the product owner, we will do that, and then they go into SP2 and do task planning, that's where they understand something can change, but now they have already committed. So you actually need to do it like take a story, break it down, and then say, can we do more? So take one at a time to understand them. And that way they don't overcommit. Okay, let's see. What anti-pattern? There's a lot here. Used as a joy fix. One talking forever. Oh, I think this is one of those that is really a lot of opinion about the daily Scrum event. Hey, you definitely have to stand up. Not really. I hope you know that. Let's see. Daily Scrum anti-pattern. So I purposefully don't have a picture yet here because I want to take you on a little story. So what I see, hey, imagine this, even close your eyes. You come into your team. I know we're remote now. Let's take this scenario where we're in the office. You often walk up to maybe a screen or a board where they have the big Kanban or what they call it. And they stand in a half circle around this. Some of them even just stand and wait until the Scrum Master get up and stand there. Other ways, but they know, whoa, at 9 o'clock I have to stand up there. They stand in a circle. They have different techniques to who starts, but the first developer will start. Maybe look down on her feet and like, oh, yesterday I did this and this and this. Today I'm doing this and this and this. And there's no impediments. Okay, next one go. Oh, what did I do yesterday? Oh, I think I did this and this and this. Today I think I will do this. And there's no impediments. Next one go. Oh, what did I do? What did I do? Oh, yeah, Michael, we did that thing, right? Yeah, that was what we did. And today we should probably finish it, right? Yeah, no, let's do that. Okay, and there's no impediments. It goes like this, right? And you're like, okay, this is where we can see it as a status meeting. Or the worst thing, I always laugh. I laugh so much. Then you have had a refinement session yesterday. You come to the stand-up and the first thing the person says, yesterday I was in the refinement session. Oh, the Scrum planning. No, the sprint planning, right? I was in the sprint planning. Then the next person, I was in the sprint planning. Today I'm doing this. Third person, yesterday I was in the sprint planning. I was a little bit like, I was also there. I know we were all there. You don't have to say it. I think it's this, like, we really tend to just, I think that's the most famous anti-pattern, right? These status meeting, but how do we change them? What do we do so they don't become this, yesterday I did this, today I did this, da-da-da. It actually also has changed in the Scrum Guide. What should you actually answer? There goes a lot of anti-pattern actually into it. But the matter is saying, avoid that thing. Often even they stand and report into the Scrum Master, right? And tell, yesterday I did this. And the Scrum Master is like, look at it, what did you, and even if the one is nearly sleeping, the one Scrum Master then look at them and say, what did you do yesterday? We don't want that picture. We want the team to collaborate. So what is this daily Scrum actually? It is to get the team on the same page. Why does it turn out to be a status meeting instead? There's multiple anti-pattern you have to look out for. One of them can be that if you go back to the sprint planning, that they each have their basically tasks to do, so they do not work as a team. They are not collaborative to deliver together. So when the daily stand-up comes, they actually don't need the daily Scrum because they're not dependent on each other. The idea with the whole Scrum framework is to have people work together to deliver something. So I like to make the example of a little startup. Imagine you're part of a startup. You're only 3 people and you all have the skills to help each other get this kicked off. You are in each other's face like, oh, Brian, so you're doing that. I'll use Michael again. Michael, you're doing that. I will do this. Can we quickly meet at 12 and see where we are and help each other out? At 12, you're like, oh, you got done with that. Oh, I'm busy over here. That will probably help into your. Can you see how the conversation is how we help each other achieving something? That brings us back to the sprint goal. If you do not have a sprint goal, there's not an objective they can achieve together. Now we come in and see again the anti-pattern. You should actually in daily Scrum talk about what have we done to get closer to achieving the sprint goal and what is the next step to get there. It's not so much about the task. Have we done it or not? It doesn't matter. We don't actually, it's hard to say we don't care. You shouldn't. You want the bigger picture. Are you achieving what not? And what should we do if we're not? It doesn't matter if Brian have done that one task or not. because we trust each other, right? That's one of the big thing in the Agile principles. We trust the people to do their job. Very simplified, sorry, but that's basically the ground idea of it. We need to trust them that they can deliver. So don't start to go down, have you done that task? It shouldn't matter. Focus on the big, what do we want to achieve, and drive towards there. So just as a sum up, talk about progress towards the sprint goal. Personally, I actually like to use an old school burn down chart. If you're on a wall or something, draw it yourself and get the team to burn down. So for those of you that doesn't know, a burn down chart is basically like you have the sprint dates this way, and it can be stories, it's whatever if you use estimation, it's story points, it can be story points upwards, and you draw the perfect line, and then every day you can see what you've been burning down. If you start with that at the daily sprint, it becomes a conversation more. You visually can see, are we getting in the right direction? If we're not, if we're flatlining, what can we then do? That's a little tip on trying to drive the conversation in the right way instead of just standing, yesterday I did this. So think about it. Focus on the sprint goal. So what are we achieving? We're going to go to the review. Second last event. So back to you. What anti-pattern have you seen happening in the review? I'll look at some questions while you answer. While you're answering, I see Fabian here. Do you know walk the board as an alternative way of doing the daily? What do you think about it? I know about it. I would say any activity or tool or things you use, it's difficult for me to say is it good or not, because it depends how the teams are using it. I always look at, is it driving the right conversation? Is it a waste of time? Like for me, those three questions, what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? That is a status meeting, and that's waste of time. We need to see what can be used to drive the right conversation. So if walk the board works for your team to drive the right conversation, then it's perfect. But if it still becomes, I did this yesterday, I'm doing this today, then I wouldn't use it. So as a Scrum Master, if you're Scrum Master again, always revisit what are you doing. Maybe for 2 weeks ago, this was amazing activity to do with your team. After 3 weeks, maybe not, because they get too used to it. So you as Scrum Master constantly need to change it up. Ooh, this one, quickly. I can see time is running. What if there are no resources for an external Scrum Master, and the Scrum Master is also a team member? I think by you asking this question, you know the answer also. All these slash titles, it doesn't work. No matter how many times people say it will work, it doesn't. Because as soon as you have slash titles, you have to focus on multiple things. Depending on what person you are, where your passion lies, that is where you will focus most. Let's say you're a technical person that also needs to be a Scrum Master. If you love to actually be technical, you will lack the Scrum part. If you love the people part, you will lack the technical part. What do you get? Maybe you have a KPI or something like that, that also impact on where do you focus. Is it a difficult situation? Of course, this is better than none, but yeah, just think about it. I would say I would rather look at the market, because you don't have to have a senior Scrum Master. I see there's a lot of different Scrum Masters out there. You can get a senior that have been a project manager for many years that is probably expensive, but very lacking the empathy skill set. Then I'd rather have a junior that is much cheaper, that is bloody good at the Scrum and facilitation. So think about that. It doesn't always have to be a senior. Look at their skill set. Oh, there's a lot of good stuff here. Hey, review, no stakeholder, no question, no open mind to adjust, improve and make changes with no stories. It's a good things here. Hey, again, why I've done my talk like this is also to create awareness for you that there's a lot of things to revisit. Even if you think your team is doing well, revisit, because so often people fall into these anti-pattern and they don't think about it. Review, anti-pattern. The demo and PO sign-up. I often get the question, is the review not just a demo? Shouldn't they just demo what they've done? One of the things is, if your PO first see what you've done in your review, it is too late. This is where the stakeholder, your PO should work with your team constantly and know what they're working on and be there for them. The review is for so much more. And when I'm creating these slides, I actually went into the Scrum Guide. I love the Scrum Guide, so just read up. And I was like, I'm very much against a slide with a lot of text. But I know this is a quick session, and I actually just took a print screen of the Scrum Guide. You don't have to read it all right now, but just to show you, this is actually how much there should be in a review. There's so much more than just a demo. Demo is just a little part of it. We need to look at the bigger picture. Where are we going? Get the stakeholders' feedback. The thing is, you should see of it, the review should actually change your backlog, because now you presented what you've been doing to the stakeholders, and they should give you feedback, and that hopefully should feed into your backlog to say what is the next thing we should work on. As a human person, we don't know what we want until we see it. So we first understand it when we see it, and then we can change. That's actually the whole idea with the review, to get the feedback loops going. You can go read the Scrum Guide on this and get more detail. It's brilliant. Retrospective, last one. We have 4 minutes left. We will make it. Over to you. Quickly, what anti-pattern have you seen happening in the retrospective event? It's an interesting one, hey? I can see here, Andy, you're saying we planned the task already, but use SP2 for documentation. We want to gather transparency. Again, I can't say directly if it's wrong or not. I would maybe not call it SP2, and then I would look at it, what documentation are you doing? And is it necessary? Is it a waste of time? I always ask the question with documentation, who is reading that? Who is it for? And are they actually then using it? Just so we don't waste time. Just quick on this one. What's the best way to change the mindset of the whole team if the daily is only a report meeting? Ask them, chat with them, talk with them. Do they like it? I don't think they like it. Ask them, what should we do to make it valuable? Even ask the question, what is needed to make it valuable? Because I don't think any people on a team likes to report in. That they've just been told they need to do it, so they do it. And now it becomes this pattern of we do every morning, so we will just do it. Have the conversation with your team. Remember, Scrum Master is better to listen to your team. What do they need? And try out. That's the good thing about Scrum. We can try out for a few days and see if it works or doesn't. There's a lot of good stuff here, and retrospective is brilliant, right? There's so much information. A good session to start with, if you're a new Scrum Master, is a brilliant session to go in and be good at facilitate and train your facilitation techniques. One of the big thing I see is underdo or overdo. So underdo, come in, don't even think about the safety. There's so many aspects of this retrospective. Again, it's a whole topic on its own, right? Do we create the safety? Do we create an environment where people can talk or feel comfortable of sharing? So underdo, ask the 3 questions, what went well, what didn't went well, what could we do different? Doesn't set the stage. There's so much more to do to make it safe and all of those. Overdo, I also see Scrum Master, they simply make the most brilliant retrospectives. And then you'll ask me, can you overdo it? Yes, because what if you use so much time on your retrospective, but everything else is lacking? What about your sprint planning? What about all the other sessions? I would rather see everything being okay than one session perfect. So if you think about that, if you use all your times because you love facilitation and go in and facilitate the retrospective crazily, try to think about not always just focus on the retrospective, find a middle way. The thing is, there's a lot of anti-pattern as we also saw, but I just want you to think about this. Underdo or overdo is often something we forget about. And that actually goes with all the sessions. You as a Scrum Master, whatever you are in your team, you need to spread out and make the whole Scrum framework work. I hope you can use this for something. Thank you for participating. The last slides, I do have a feedback form. So Robert, I don't know what you want to chat or anything, but I have 2 more slides. I would love some feedback. One word, how was this talk? And the other one, so please give me some feedback. And thank you so much for your time. Is Robert still here? On the dot.
I'm here. You can't. Okay, you can't see me. Unfortunately, everybody else can, but you can't. Malene, that was brilliant. I'm glad I turned video and audio off because actually I was laughing out loud at some of your stories. Let's say I've seen 1 or 2 of these anti-patterns in my time. I have also. It's always. Yeah, I love the reality of what you're describing and the fact that there are ways out of this as well. It's not just something, you know, there are ways of dealing with this. And I think it's just great for people to hear you're not alone, you know, you're okay. It's okay that it's not okay. But there is, you know, there are possibilities to put this right and there are ways of thinking about it and stuff. And I just think that was a brilliant talk. I'm just so fantastic. I'm really glad we recorded.
Thanks. I think one of the last comment from me, one of the most thing, if you're Scrum Master now and you think, oh, but I have all this under control, it is revisit what you do, because we suddenly find ourselves in a one of these anti-pattern and we don't even realize it. So revisit.
Inspect and adapt for Scrum Masters.
And the last thing, any feedback to me, there you can write some text. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Malene. Great. Thank you for a great kickoff there for us for the tour. I really enjoyed that. And I can see possibilities how we could make 5 whole separate, you know, talks out of this. We could just do a whole day.
It is big topics. It is very big topics.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. As soon as you're ready, we just turn off you leave the room.